Feeling the often unbearable weight of the cost of living on their shoulders, some people have turned to living in RVs as a way to get by. The problem is finding a place to park long term.
California is the fifth largest economy on Earth, wealthier than most countries. Yet somehow, LA's tent crisis is exploding faster than any billion-dollar program can stop it. Families, seniors, workers, living outside on sidewalks, in cars, and under freeways. Where is all this money going? And why are no-go zones spreading like wildfire across downtown LA? Let's peel back the curtain. Los Angeles now holds the largest homeless population in the United States, and the numbers tell a story of crisis that keeps getting worse. In 2024, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority counted over 75,518 homeless people countywide, representing a 9% jump in just 1 year. More than 47,000 of them, that's more than 6 out of every 10 people, are completely unsheltered and living outdoors. Downtown LA alone holds an estimated 12,000 people living on the streets, concentrated across Skid Row, the Fashion District, the Arts District, and corridors near Union Station. Skid Row is now believed to have the densest homeless population in America, with up to 4,400 people packed into a 50-block zone, and tent counts growing every single month. Blocks once home to storefronts and coffee shops now hold rows of 50 to 100 tents at a time, some evolving into multi-structure camps using pallets, tarps, metal gates, or plywood walls. Sidewalks disappear under makeshift shelters. Street surveys show over 600 encampments spanning just the downtown grid, and city crews remove more than 3,000 tons of trash every month from tent zones, enough to fill 150 garbage trucks. Even more alarming, 42% of people living in tents this year are new to homelessness, driven by rent spikes, eviction, and job loss. What used to be temporary camping has now hardened into long-term street living, turning sidewalks into semi-permanent open-air neighborhoods. No-go zones isn't just a dramatic term. It's everyday vocabulary for many downtown residents. People living in apartment towers, lofts, and condos say there are now entire blocks they will not walk through, even in broad daylight. These areas form wherever tents cluster tightly together. Residents report feeling unsafe not only due to visible poverty, but because these camps function like neighborhoods where outsiders walking through are treated as intruders. Safety surveys show that residents now regularly report harassment, aggressive panhandling, public intoxication, and fights spilling into the street. In a recent community safety assessment, more than 60% of downtown residents reported avoiding specific streets every week. Women, seniors, and parents with young children face the greatest risk. Many describe being followed, yelled at, or having to step into traffic to bypass encampments. These no-go zones aren't just residential. Tourists are also warned to stay away from parts of Skid Row, 6th Street, the Flower District, and stretches near Union Station. The psychological toll is enormous. People pay thousands in rent only to feel like captives inside apartment buildings costing $2,500 to $4,200 per month. Joggers reroute morning runs. Dog walkers time bathroom trips before dark. Students are driven instead of walking a few blocks. The term no-go zone speaks to something deeper. When residents feel unsafe in their own city, trust collapses. And when fear becomes normal, it signals not inconvenience but civic breakdown. A major driver of LA's expanding homeless encampments is the overlapping wave of addiction, substance abuse, and untreated mental illness. According to LA County data, roughly 1/3 of homeless individuals suffer from severe mental health disorders, but frontline workers say the real number is much higher. Addiction compounds everything. Fentanyl deaths in Los Angeles County climbed past 2,400 in a single year, a staggering increase compared to pre-pandemic years. Outreach teams report that many tent clusters aren't simply places to sleep. They become informal ecosystems where drugs are bought, sold, and consumed all day and night. Methamphetamine and fentanyl dominate the streets, fueling psychosis, violent outbursts, and medical emergencies. Hospitals report frequent walk-ins from unsheltered individuals suffering infections, fractures, and overdose. More than 20% of emergency room visits downtown now involve homeless patients. Yet treatment beds remain scarce. Detox centers and recovery programs turn away thousands each month due to capacity. For people spiraling into mental illness, the problem is even worse. California has closed more than half of its psychiatric hospital beds over decades, leaving law enforcement and emergency rooms to absorb the overflow. By the time someone is mentally unstable enough to require involuntary care, they often meet state criteria only for a few hours, then are released back to the sidewalks. The result is a humanitarian loop: untreated illness, street survival, drug abuse, and another tent erected on the same block the next morning. Many people ask why the police don't simply clear the streets. The truth is, they legally can't. Court cases like Martin versus Boise prevent cities from removing homeless individuals from public sidewalks unless enough shelter beds are available, and Los Angeles doesn't even come close. That ruling alone stopped thousands of attempted clearings. On top of that, LAPD staffing is at a historic low, with fewer than 9,000 active officers, down from over 10,000 just a few years ago, while the city's population surpassed 3.8 million. Police budget cuts and recruitment challenges mean fewer patrols, longer response times, and reduced enforcement against property crime, vandalism, and drug activity in tent zones. Officers are told to prioritize violent crime, not encampment complaints. Meanwhile, local policies require multiple steps, outreach, notice postings, and service offers before even temporarily removing tents. That process can take weeks, and if shelters are full, enforcement stalls completely. Even when sweep teams clear streets, legal loopholes allow people to move just a block away and set up again. Business owners say they feel abandoned. They call police only to be told nothing can be done. Officers report frustration too. Enforcing laws is pointless without services and housing options. LA's homeless crisis has become a legal maze. Humanitarian protections, housing shortages, and limited police capacity collide, creating a situation where tents multiply unchecked, not because no one notices, but because the system itself prevents meaningful intervention. Los Angeles voters approved multiple major tax measures promising to end homelessness, including Proposition HHH in 2016, that generated over $1.2 billion specifically to build affordable housing. The result should have been tens of thousands of units. Instead, just a few thousand have been completed, and many cost more than $500,000 per housing unit, with some projects reportedly now exceeding $700,000 to $800,000 per unit. Meanwhile, homelessness rose another 50% since the tax passed, leaving voters furious. LA also spends more than $600 million every year on shelters, outreach, legal services, sanitation crews, emergency staffing, and safe parking programs, yet tents increase annually. The system is fragmented across agencies, city departments, county departments, nonprofit networks, service contractors, and temporary grant-funded programs. Money disappears into planning documents, outreach coordinators, pilot programs, evaluations, and administrative overhead. What's missing is permanent exits off the street. Instead of building basic shelters fast, local government pursued slow, expensive housing-first developments that take years to deliver. Critics argue that money has been spent servicing homelessness, not solving it, with jobs and funding streams depending on the crisis remaining unsolved. For taxpayers who believed billion-dollar solutions would clean the streets, the disconnect is jarring. Huge budgets, ambitious promises, and sidewalks more crowded than ever. Where large encampments appear, crime follows, and Los Angeles numbers prove it. LAPD data shows a 30 to 40% jump in violent incidents reported within blocks of major tent zones, including robbery, assault, and sexual violence. In Skid Row alone, officers respond to over 2,000 emergency calls per month, most linked to encampment activity. Fires have become so common that the Los Angeles Fire Department now reports one encampment fire every 2 to 3 hours, accounting for nearly 50% of all structure fires in the city. Businesses surrounding tent clusters are hit hard. Shoplifting, vandalism, and break-ins have skyrocketed. Small business owners report losses in the tens of thousands, forcing many to shut their doors. In parts of downtown, more than 20% of storefronts now stand vacant, citing encampment crime as a primary reason. Residents face daily street-level danger, fights spilling into traffic, drug-fueled psychotic episodes, and stolen bikes or packages. Police openly admit they cannot respond to every call, prioritizing cases where lives are immediately threatened. A tragic dynamic grows from the chaos. Homeless individuals themselves are often the biggest victims. They're far more likely to be stabbed, beaten, or robbed than housed residents. The LAPD reports that 78% of violent crime reported inside Skid Row involves homeless on homeless victims. Encampments aren't just poverty. They've become high-risk zones where survival replaces safety. And as the population grows, so does the danger, block by block. Once a booming hotspot of development, downtown Los Angeles is now watching businesses disappear at a historic pace. Store owners say they simply cannot survive next to tent clusters. In 2024, the Downtown Center Business Improvement District reported over 1,600 commercial closures since the pandemic, and more than 400 in the past year alone. Small business owners are hit the hardest. Many report spending $2,000 to $8,000 per month on private security, added locks, window repairs, and hazard insurance deductibles. Some storefronts have been broken into more than 12 times in a single year. Tourism, downtown's lifeline, is also drying up. Convention bookings have slowed as nearby streets fill with tents, open drug use, and human waste. Hotels along Figueroa, Olympic, and Broadway report visitor complaints and declining reservations. Commercial vacancy rates have now crossed 30% in key blocks, and landlords are struggling to convince new businesses to move in. Developers who invested billions in luxury condos, Staples Center expansion, and the Arts District now fear collapse in future property values as street conditions worsen. The end result is that downtown LA's economic engine is stalling, not because the city lacks potential, but because entire neighborhoods are turning into zones where commerce simply cannot function. For tens of thousands of people who live downtown, the homeless crisis is no longer something they see on the news. It's the neighborhood right outside their door. Residents report feeling trapped in their own buildings. Parents with children refuse to walk certain streets. Dog owners plan bathroom breaks like military missions. Quick, direct, avoid tent clusters. Condo residents paying $3,000 to $4,500 per month now say they can't enjoy basic city life. Morning coffee walks, jogging routes, farmers markets, or even grocery trips after dark are off limits. Building managers report a sharp rise in tenant complaints linked directly to encampments. Noise at night, open drug use, sexual activity, harassment at doorways, and used needles near building entrances. Families are among the most affected. Children are driven everywhere, even when school is only a 10-minute walk. Seniors avoid sidewalks entirely. Women describe being followed home or yelled at while passing encampments. Some buildings privately instruct residents to use underground garages instead of front doors and avoid streets at night, despite high rent and taxes. Residents are also seeing amenities disappear. Parks fenced off due to camp takeovers, bus stops moved, businesses closed. This is the psychological toll nobody measures. People living in the middle of America's entertainment capital but behaving as if they're in lockdown. Once vibrant sidewalks are now barriers. The city built for walkability and nightlife has become a place where thousands live behind doors and hope the next block doesn't fall. Los Angeles leaders say no one wants to live outside, but tens of thousands simply have nowhere to go. Despite billions spent, LA's shelter network cannot keep up with demand. Across the county, there are about 25,000 shelter and interim housing beds, but more than 47,000 people living outdoors, meaning at minimum 22,000 people have no chance of getting inside, even if every bed is filled. Shelters report reaching capacity every single night, often before 6 p.m. Families are turned away. Seniors are turned away. People with disabilities are turned away. Meanwhile, the roadblocks are endless. Some shelters have strict entry rules. No pets, no partners, curfews at 7 p.m., mandatory sobriety, or time limits on stay. Others are plagued by overcrowding, theft, fights, and unsanitary conditions. Many avoid shelters simply because they feel safer in a tent than in a room where 100 strangers sleep inches apart. The city created safe sleeping sites and tiny house villages, but capacity is tiny. Most serve less than 100 people each, and wait lists stretch weeks. Project Room Key, once hailed as a miracle, housed thousands during the pandemic using hotels. But it has since been wound down, leaving over 9,000 people back on the street. No matter how much outreach workers do, math wins. Too many people. Too few beds. Until housing supply meets demand, tents remain the default. The crisis isn't only visible in tents, it's on the roads. Los Angeles now has an estimated 18,000 people living in vehicles, from compact cars to full-size RVs. That's a 5-fold increase in just 10 years. Minivans line arterial streets. Sedans become bedrooms. Full families sleep in SUVs parked beneath luxury apartment towers. Larger RV clusters form along major boulevards: Jefferson, Venice Boulevard, Sepulveda, Balboa, Lankershim, all now dotted with aging motorhomes with flat tires and boarded windows. For many, a vehicle is the last shield against tents, a lockable door, protection from weather, and a place to store belongings. But car living comes with constant instability. People are forced to move every 72 hours under city parking law. Thousands lose vehicles to towing crackdowns. Repairs drain limited income. Gas prices above $5 per gallon crush mobility. Some streets host 40 to 80 vehicles in a single mile, forming car-based encampments that function like neighborhoods. The tragedy is that a huge percentage are working poor. Delivery drivers, gig workers, caregivers, security guards, people earning too much to qualify for aid, but too little to pay $2,700 plus rent. Schools now report students doing homework in back seats using Wi-Fi from parking lots. Vehicle living is no longer fringe. It's the fastest growing form of homelessness in LA. Like tents, these communities signal that millions are teetering, one flat tire away from the sidewalk. Los Angeles spends tens of millions every year on cleanups, called sweeps, where sanitation crews and police temporarily clear blocks of tents. Yet residents say these operations feel like erasing chalk from a board, only to watch someone write it all back again the same day. City records show LA now performs over 120 encampment cleanups per week, with each requiring sanitation workers, outreach staff, police oversight, dumpsters, and hazmat gear. But the results last hours, not weeks. People simply move a block away, under a freeway ramp, beside a school, behind a grocery store, and return when crews leave. Court rulings make the situation harder. Personal belongings must be bagged, cataloged, and stored for 90 days, slowing crews to a crawl. Meanwhile, trash removal is staggering. LA Sanitation collects over 3,000 tons of encampment waste every month: mattresses, pallets, propane tanks, furniture, and human waste. Residents living near sweeps report a pattern. 6 a.m., tents lining sidewalks. 9 a.m., clear streets. 5 p.m., tarps reappear. Midnight, the block returns to normal, tents, fires, shouting. Without permanent housing, sweeps only reshuffle misery. Workers doing the cleanups say it feels like bailing water out of a sinking ship with a cup. The city isn't fixing the leak. It's just clearing puddles and hoping the storm stops. Sweeps may move tents temporarily, but they solve absolutely nothing when people have nowhere else to go. One of the most overlooked parts of LA's homeless crisis is who is actually living in those tents. The stereotype, all addicts, mentally unstable, or unwilling to work, ignores a growing truth. Working families are now showing up on sidewalks. Data shows over 9,000 children in Los Angeles County lack stable housing, from shelters to cars to tents. School districts report 40% growth in students classified as homeless in just 5 years. Family tents look different. 2-room tarps, strollers outside, toys tied to fences. Many parents work service jobs, restaurant staff, childcare providers, cleaners, warehouse workers, people who earn $15 to $22 per hour but cannot afford rent averaging $2,700 to $3,200 a month. Evictions fueled the surge. LA County saw over 60,000 eviction filings last year, the highest since 2008. COVID-era protections expired, and landlords, dealing with unpaid rent and inflation, raised prices. Meanwhile, shelters that accept families are overwhelmed, with waiting lists stretching weeks. Space is so scarce that families sometimes rotate nights inside. Mother and children one night, father sleeping in a car outside. The newest demographic is seniors. Over 7,000 people 60 plus are homeless, a number projected to double by 2030. This isn't a fringe group anymore. Homelessness has crept into LA's working backbone. Tents aren't just the last stop of addiction. They're the first stop after the middle class collapses. Los Angeles is now one of the most expensive rental markets in the United States, trailing only New York and San Francisco, and it's one of the primary engines pushing people into the streets. The median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in LA is now $2,300 to $2,500 per month, with two bedrooms routinely topping $3,200 to $3,500. In neighborhoods near downtown, rents have jumped 40 to 70% over 10 years, while incomes have remained largely flat. Nearly 60% of LA renters are considered rent-burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of income on housing. Shockingly, 1 in 3 spend more than half their paycheck on rent alone. The math is brutal. A household earning $55,000 per year, the typical take-home for many service workers, cannot qualify for most apartments, which require renters to earn 3 times the rent. As inflation spiked and pandemic savings ran dry, thousands simply hit a breaking point. They're not substance abusers or mentally ill. They're families priced out of housing. A USC study found that for every $100 increase in rent, Los Angeles produces another 3,000 homeless residents. Meanwhile, luxury developments continue to rise, glass towers with gyms and rooftop pools, because developers profit more from upscale units than moderate housing. LA's housing market is no longer failing a small group, it's failing a majority. And as prices keep rising, tents keep multiplying. More Angelenos live in cars and RVs today than at any time in city history, because it's now cheaper to buy a vehicle and sleep inside it than to rent an apartment. Estimates show 18,000 people live in vehicles in Los Angeles, and outreach workers say the real number may be closer to 25,000 because hundreds park in industrial zones hidden from counters. The economy explains why. Used RVs sell for $3,500 to $10,000, less than 2 months' rent. Old vans cost $1,800 to $4,000. Cars can be purchased for under $1,000 on Craigslist. Meanwhile, rent requires first month, last month, deposits, proof of income, credit checks, barriers that shut out thousands. Vehicle residents include working-class people, caregivers, construction workers, warehouse staff, the people who keep LA running. Yet life on wheels is relentlessly unstable. Parking bans force nightly moves. Police tows cost $300 to $1,200, enough to wipe out someone's entire savings. No running water, refrigeration, or power. Repairs can instantly destroy housing. One blown transmission equals homelessness. Entire streets, Venice, Jefferson, Burbank, Lankershim, San Fernando Road, now serve as rolling neighborhoods. As long as rent outpaces wages, vehicle homelessness grows, not as crime, but as survival. People aren't choosing RVs and cars because they're fun. They're choosing them because it's the only option left before the sidewalk. Many residents believe the city chooses to tolerate camps, but legally, Los Angeles cannot remove tents at scale. The pivotal ruling is Martin versus Boise from 2018, a federal decision declaring that cities cannot criminalize sleeping in public if there are not enough shelter beds to offer every individual. LA doesn't even come close. With 25,000 beds and 47,000 unsheltered, the city cannot enforce bans on camping nearly anywhere. Additional lawsuits, LA Alliance for Human Rights, John Doe versus City of LA, and injunctions over property seizure have added layers of constraints. Cities must offer services before removal, provide notice before cleanups, store personal belongings for 90 days, and avoid criminalizing survival. This legal maze means LAPD can only remove tents in narrow zones, schools, evacuation paths, or safety hazard areas, and even then, individuals can return when outreach teams leave. In effect, the law transformed sidewalks into default shelter until housing supply rises. Critics argue rulings protect human rights. Residents argue they trap cities in paralysis. But nobody disputes the outcome. Tents spreading faster than housing solutions. The court system essentially handcuffed local governments, leaving them unable to enforce existing laws. Cities can't clear camps without offering housing they don't have, creating a permanent legal gridlock. Whether these rulings are humanitarian protections or systemic failures depends entirely on perspective, but the reality is the same. Tents remain, and enforcement is nearly impossible. LA residents are furious, and they're demanding answers. The public approved massive funding measures expecting visible improvement, yet homelessness grew. Proposition HHH from 2016 brought $1.2 billion. Measure H from 2017 brought $355 million per year in sales tax. State funds added hundreds of millions more. In total, LA and California have poured over $4 billion into homelessness in 7 years. But instead of thousands of housing units, only 3,500 units are complete, with some costing $700,000 to $900,000 each. Voters now believe homelessness is a growth industry, fueling nonprofits, consultants, and administrative burdens rather than shelter construction. A state audit found up to 40% of funds were spent on planning, environmental review, case managers, and overhead, not on mattresses or walls. Neighborhood groups now file lawsuits demanding accountability. Taxpayer associations call for audits and criminal investigations into waste. Millions now ask, why is LA spending like a world-class nation but producing third-world results? Who benefits from homelessness staying unsolved? Public trust is collapsing, and that collapse reshapes elections, protests, and city politics. The anger isn't just about waste, it's about betrayal. Voters did what was asked of them. They approved taxes, they supported housing, and instead of progress, they watched encampments triple in size. The backlash isn't about compassion fatigue. It's about accountability and the growing suspicion that the system profits from failure. Los Angeles is approaching a breaking point. With homelessness rising faster than solutions are built, experts warn that tent cities may become permanent infrastructure, no different than roads, alleys, or streetlights. If trends continue, homeless population may surpass 100,000 by 2030. Seniors will double. Vehicle living may outpace street camping. Middle-class families will fall into homelessness faster than aid can reach them. This isn't theoretical. Cities like Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco already show the trajectory. Meanwhile, political responses shift. Some call for mass shelter construction, warehouse-style campuses capable of housing thousands, fast and cheap. Others fight for housing first no matter the cost, even if it takes years. Still others demand mandatory treatment, arguing mental illness plus addiction cannot be left on sidewalks. But one reality is unavoidable. The city must choose a direction, because doing nothing leads to expansion. Residents fear a future where Los Angeles becomes a tale of two cities, luxury towers above, survival camps below. Yet there is opportunity, billions, public pressure, and growing urgency. Whether LA collapses or turns the corner will be decided in the next 3 to 5 years, not decades. The question isn't whether change is coming. The question is, what kind of change? Will tents become permanent? Will enforcement return? Will housing finally catch up with need? What happens next depends on decisions being made right now by voters, politicians, and residents who refuse to accept that America's second-largest city has given up on its sidewalks. Los Angeles is out of time. This crisis isn't slowing down, and the cracks in the system are turning into sinkholes beneath the entire city. Should LA build massive emergency shelters, force treatment, or keep the current policies? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Real stories, real solutions, real feelings. And don't miss our next video. We're diving into how other cities across America are falling into the same trap and what happens when the tents spread beyond LA.